Welcome to WKIT-DG Radio on the Pyramid One World Radio Network. We are your source for the latest news, music, and entertainment from around the world. Our programming is designed to keep you informed and entertained with a variety of content that will keep you engaged. Tune in to hear interviews with your favorite artists, exclusive live performances, and more. So sit back and relax as WKIT-DG Radio brings you the best in global radio entertainment.
Bob Charles and Pyramid One World Radio Network are proud to present Robert Potter and Raymond Keller II, the author of his new book, Venus Rising: The UFO History of the Second Planet. Pyramid One World Radio presents an intriguing and captivating event, Venus Rising, exploring the UFO history of the second planet. Join us for a thought-provoking conversation with Robert Potter and Raymond Keller, the esteemed author of this must-have book that deserves a place in everyone's library. In this exclusive event, we will delve into the fascinating world of UFO history on Venus. Robert Potter and Raymond Keller will share their extensive knowledge and research, shedding light on the mysteries surrounding this enigmatic planet. From ancient civilizations to modern-day sightings, they will take us on a journey through time, exploring the uncharted territory of Venus extraterrestrial encounters. Robert Potter's expertise in ufology and his passion for uncovering hidden truths make him a remarkable speaker for this event. His insights into the UFO phenomenon have captivated audiences around the world. Raymond Keller, known as the Second, is an accomplished author whose book has become a must-read for enthusiasts and skeptics alike. By attending this event, you will gain valuable insights into the UFO history of Venus that are sure to leave you questioning what you thought you knew about our neighboring planet. Don't miss out on this unique opportunity to expand your knowledge and engage in a stimulating conversation with these renowned experts. Now please, with Bob Charles, put your hands together and welcome our honored guest, Mr. Robert Potter and book author Dr. Raymond A. Keller II.
You know, let me just remind everybody, you can call into the show. We have a new number. Yes. The world is falling apart, and so did our last number. Just poof, gone. Anyway, the new number is 508-924-5697. Again, 508-924-5697. If you call in, you can not only listen to the show as you're on hold, or you can just ask questions. That's what we like. So start calling, start dialing, get your cell phone. I don't care what you use. 2 strings and 2 cups and go for it. Let me produce. Oh, I am producing this. What am I saying? My best friends, Robert Potter and Raymond Keller.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Robert, you hear me?
I do. Thank you so much
there
for
you go. It's all yours, dude. I mean, to tell you the honest to God truth, I had somebody, by the way, just before I pushed any buttons, they came up with a, sent me an SMS over here, and it said, "This is going to be great." So
Well,
you see, they already know it's going to be great.
I hope everyone feels the same way.
There you go.
So, I wanted to take this opportunity.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm hearing echo. but I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce everyone of your audiences to Dr. Raymond Keller. He's become a wonderful friend and a mentor, along with my other wonderful contactees, Fred Bell, Dr. Frank Stranges, who met Valiant Thor, the Venusian, and Louis Martens, the Venusian contactee, and many other luminaries that have, Alex Collier and others that have guided me, and we've combined our knowledge and information and share with each other. Raymond Keller, I was introduced to in 2017 by a wonderful friend named Frank Chili. And Raymond was very open and answered all my questions, and he has vast metaphysical experience. And I'll just say that Raymond did get to live upon Venus for 2.5 months in 2012 until sometime in mid-February, I believe it was. And he's written now 11 books. The Venus Rising book, which was sent to you, was kind of, to get you acquainted with him and the incredible information he shared. And today, he's gonna screen share. Have you enabled screen sharing? I'm not sure.
What'd you say?
Have you enabled screen sharing?
No.
If you can enable that, Raymond would like to share some information. We can talk about, I'll let you ask some questions of him.
Yeah, I can't do it on my end, and that this is live. I mean, he can do it on his end.
Right.
Okay. I have the
Yeah,
I have my PowerPoint for Venus 1, the book Venus Rising. Yeah, I have the PowerPoints for it.
Okay. There's also a possibility to do the Paul Solom one, but Raymond, I would, or Bob, I would like you to ask Raymond some questions, and maybe the audience will feel free to chime in as well.
Actually, you know what? He's got. You said he has something with 3 pages, or something. This is something that's, and we talked about the other day when you and I were on the phone. We talked about Florida.
Right.
And there's some sightings over here. There's been sightings net over New York and things. People are I'll tell you, this is just from what I get. I mean, sometimes, who knows? Like half of the people out there in that are smoking something, or they're reading the wrong newspaper. I don't know what it is, but they keep saying, "What's with this UFO stuff?" Because I started this promotion last week, and I was trying to write back to them and saying, "Look, dude, this is what you got to do. Do your homework first of all. These people have been around. How do you think they got pyramids? And how do you think they got Sphinx? And how do you think they got, places in Peru that are out of this world? Where do all these circles come from that you see all over England and everything? Do you really think that any government, because they're all government nutcases, but do you think that a government is going to come in and they're going to take a lawnmower and make a big harvest circle over in England? No, that's not going to happen, dude. So what I said, I'm serious. I mean, I have so much fun with people, but it's one of these things where these people have been around for millions of years, not just yesterday. And everybody says, "Oh, well, they were only there 1,000 years ago." I said, "Yeah." I said, "You want to bet?" I said, "But people don't believe this one either. This is our 3rd time around. We haven't been here just this time in this dimension, in this part of the universe. We've been somewhere else twice other times. Why do you think when they dig down into the ground and somewhere and that they find all these archived pieces and everything else and antiques and stuff, they found a tire? Like, who made a tire a mile down in the ground when some guy was digging for some kind of, I don't know, he's making some kind of tunnel for something. But he came up with a tire a mile down. Now, how do you do that? It doesn't happen. It just don't. And they tried to, carbon date the tire or something like that, and they really couldn't do anything. But they could carbon date the dirt, and the dirt was like 20,000 years. So, hey,
I'd like to just answer this basic question, and I'm just going to say like Dr. Frank Stranges used to say, we're not alone, never have been, and never will be alone.
Right.
There is an advanced uh, source of intelligence that's been planning and seeding life on various worlds for the experience and the evolution and the growth of the soul. So if you're not into that understanding, then this may be of interest to you, but we're going beyond the fact that they're here, but we're going to be explaining. I'll explain the Miami thing for the audience here real quick. So we have basically a negative extraterrestrial presence that has been part of what is called the Luciferian Rebellion in one of our history books or the Bible. And this goes back to, I want to go back to 425,000 years ago, when a group of beings called the Anunnaki came to this planet and hybridized the Neanderthals, which were a previous race. There was another cycle of a world before that was destroyed. And they destroyed themselves by nuclear power, so they had been reverted to, Neanderthals, and were had a very good, solid gene and possibilities. And one of these extraterrestrial Anunnaki, Enlil, wanted to create from these human Neanderthals a race that could help them, and they would help them mine gold. So they chose some of the more brave Neanderthals that were watching the Anunnakis in their extraction process, and they took their DNA and they created, let's say, a type of being that was evolved and different than what we would think of today. So these beings were evolved and became the Atlanteans. Okay, there was also a civilization called Lemuria that was being evolved concurrently, and throughout the 425,000 years prior to this time, there have been a lot of changes taking place. And those changes include the way that the Anunnaki looked at human. And this can be reported in Zechariah Sitchin's book and all the ancient hieroglyphs and everything in the Sumerian cuneiform tablets. And basically, there was a difference in how to deal with the humans between Enlil and Enki. Now, in the Galactic Federation of Worlds, when these higher Elohim, Seraphim, and these beings that have creative abilities in the genetics of humans, they have the ability to, they're interdimensional. They live hundreds of thousands of years. So they're in another dimension. There was an agreement that was going to take place on a world called Havona. This is in the Urantia book, where they had a council and they were going to change the evolution on the material world so it wouldn't be so much suffering. The humans were taking too long to evolve. Fifth dimensional and sixth dimensional beings were not evolving fast enough, so they decided to speed up the evolution. Now, Lucifer, a very high being, disagreed with that change in the world plans, because that would allow the humans developing on Earth to move beyond even those beings. So he gave a speech and took 1/3 of the angels from the higher dimensions who administer to the lower worlds in the evolution with him. And that was known as the Luciferian Rebellion. And throughout the long period of time, many of these societies and worlds have been redeemed. And this Earth is the last bastion hold of the fallen. Some people call them archons, but there's good archons too. Archon means manipulator of matter. So now we find ourselves 425,000 years later with a hiccup that occurred 16,000 years ago. The Draco-Reptilian Anunnaki, 16,000 years ago, were asked by the interior government in the higher dimensions of the earth that had a balance of the dark and the light to come in and stop the wars, which they did. But when they did that, there was a contract or a covenant made that they would have complete ownership of the earth for 16,000 years. And their intention was to use humanity. They were hateful of God for this creation, and they have been managing the earth for 16,000 years. And we look at in the Bible, and Solomon, he kind of went to the dark side. Allegedly, ISIS did too. These were powerful spiritual beings who were guiding humanity along the way. And unfortunately, these Anunnaki were setting themselves up as gods. There's only one God, and that's the isness. Always is, was, and will be, and is beyond all name and form, immanent and transcendent to name and form, and the infinite creative potential. Now, each galaxy has a creator sun. This would be called a theophonic angel, Archangel Michael, or the one like unto God. And each galaxy has a creator God. And we look out in the physical world that we can see, we see trillions of galaxies, worlds without end. So the creation of the isness is beyond. There's God. We picture Archangel Michael as a man with a sword and a shield and all that stuff, but it's really a pure creative force, and I don't think it really has a gender. Maybe it does, or a masculine aspect, but that's beyond us. Now, we are all reflections or fractals of this infinite creator. And as infinite creators, we hold within us the creator source, which is called the Son, or the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness existed long before the incarnation of what we would know as Yeshua, or as he was called in modern days, we call him Jesus, which is a transliteration of the Greek Iesos, which means the anointed one. So we have to understand the true history and the complex interaction of the extraterrestrials on Earth for millions of years. The Lemurians, they destroyed themselves around, I forget, Raymond could probably answer this, when the sinking of Atlantis took place. 64 million souls, almost the entire Lemurian continent, which went from Hawaii, which was a science center on the western tip of Lemuria, all the little islands in the Pacific Ocean, all the way to Japan, are little remnants of the highest mountaintops of Lemuria. Now, Lemuria did have colonies in South America and Brazil, one called Patiti, which is being contacted. They're inviting 7 people from South America down there who will go into that mountain. They've been there before and met the inner earth people. And then Lemuria had colonies in Cusco, the giant stones at Sacsayhuaman, at Ollantaytambo, the circles of Mornay. All of these are related to extraterrestrial contact. In fact, at a certain period in our history, various extraterrestrials were interacting with the humans on the earth and actually interbreeding with them, and a lot of things going on there. So let's fast forward to our time now.
I was just going to say, hold on 1 second. I was just going to say one thing. You got to have, I'm watching Raymond, okay? And Raymond has something to say in between what you're saying, because it was going through, I saw it going through his mind. It was like, maybe I'm just intuitive or something, but he wanted to step in a couple of times. Raymond, put your hand up in the air and say, hey.
I want him to take off where I left off. I just wanted to show that the extraterrestrials have been here forever, and that we're in a very critical phase in our evolution where we're heading into some difficult times. But Raymond, you please take it over. And then,
sure. I just wanted to add to what Bob said at the beginning of the program, that many civilizations have come and gone that we don't even have any indication of in the historical record. In fact, the series of articles that I'm working on now about the ancient Hopi prophecies, the Hopi Native Americans, say that we're currently in the 4th reconstruction of the world. and we're headed into the fifth, because this one is soon to end. And so this is a common theme in all the world's major religions. The Hindus talk about a time before recorded time, when there were great powers on the earth and extraterrestrial interventions. They came to our planet in these huge space platforms called vimanas, and they had Merkabas and giant ships where they would conduct warfare, even nuclear warfare, on our planet before our recorded history ever even began. And if you look into the legends of ancient peoples, you can see that all of this is so. And then, as to the current spate of UFO sightings in the modern age, let's say that it began after 1947, the great UFO flap, beginning with Kenneth Arnold's sighting of 9 dish-shaped objects over Mount Rainier in Washington State on the 24th of June, 1947. Then there was the crash at Roswell and so forth. Well, the newly created Department of the Air Force, 1948, one of the first things that they did was to create Project Sign. And after 1 year in existence, they issued a report on the 16th of January of 1949. And they said, there's definitely some technology here, but we're not quite ready to say that it's of an extraterrestrial origin. Now let's shoot ahead. Let's shoot ahead to the 25th of June of 2021, and the UFO revelations the UAP revelations were coming out, and then the Department of Defense told the congressional hearings that our study of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, we've concluded that there's a definite technology here behind the appearance of these strange objects, but we're not quite ready to say it's extraterrestrial in origin. So there really hasn't been the big disclosure that we're waiting for, despite the fact that a current poll indicated that while 50 million Americans have seen unidentified aerial phenomena, actually 15 million Americans, 15 million, claim to have had contact with some kind of intelligence behind the UAPs, whether it's ultradimensional, extraterrestrial, or just paranormal. And so this is a sure indication that the disclosure is ultimately going to come not with a bang, but with a whimper, because the people are having experiences and contacts with vast powers in space and beyond the Earth on their own. So this is what I have to say about that question.
So, Doctor, I mean, I have a question about this. All right, we have all these people that are seeing these things, that are interacting in some way or whatever. Why don't they just come out and say they're meeting with somebody, or they're interacting with somebody, or they know that somebody from somewhere else is here? Why don't they do that?
Some have actually come forth and said as much. There was the Space Authority in Israel who said there does indeed exist a galactic confederation, and also Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister in Canada in the Pearson administration in the early 60s, has said that he's worked with American astronauts and leaders in NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and he knows for a fact that there's at least 80 species of extraterrestrials that are operating on the Earth. And it probably serves the interests of the powers that be to just let these people talk, and hopefully their statements will be dismissed as by the news and by the propaganda apparatus as just crazy rantings. But so many astronauts and people in the Defense Department, and so we've seen the Navy pilots and many others coming to the fore, that just doesn't hold any water anymore.
So
Dr. Kelly, you really, I mean, you hit it when you said that, but my another thing in it that I would say was, why don't they, through the galactic section, why don't they get in touch with people, certain people that they trust here on Earth, and have a seminar, like, hey guys, this is like what we're doing, this is what you're doing, this is where we came from. In other words, a bunch of people like even me, I'm on the radio all the time. We're talking to, sometimes we hit 122 countries. There are people like us that don't, I mean, we're not liars in any way whatsoever. I don't fudge anything. I mean, if I'm going to say something, I'm going to come out and say it. If it's going to be true or not true, I'm going to make sure it's true before I open my mouth.
I'm going to answer that question. The question that was answered in my interview with the moon-based commander, or arranged, the videotaped interview that Raymond Keller so kindly arranged for me, and the camera was held by the security chief of the Venusians in a location
undisclosed.
And what I asked her, I said, why don't you just show themselves? And why don't the governments retreat? She said, the governments know all about us. They're keeping it because, and she said, why the governments will not release it, because if people learn their technologies of healing, if they learn their technologies of energy, and how they organize their society in terms of finance, it would take away the power from the fallen ones who have hybridized humans into hybrids. That's how they skirted universal law. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and various other elite bloodlines are not entirely human. They've been raised and bred to believe that they have a right to rule and that they're the best of humanity, when really they are the pawn scum traitors to humanity. This is the process of this we're going through in this awakening. The governments will never release this information because they've created wars for profit, and it's been very, very hideous what they've done. We don't want to go into that right now. I've talked about that many times, but let's focus on the positive message of the Venusians of hope and love and prosperity for the planet. Does anyone have any questions? Raymond Keller here is an amazing contactee, and if he wants to ask questions, anyone wants to ask questions, that would be great. Otherwise, I would say that the Venusians work behind the scenes like Wizard of Oz, just as the fallen Anunnaki, and it's been a battle of the dark and the light for the souls on the earth. The souls have a beastly nature and a spiritual nature. And depending on what frequency, what we tune into, we're responsible. And with all of the manipulation of the societal infrastructure and the way we relate, we are traumatized. We don't know the truth. We don't have a superculture. They've hidden the truth. They've kept all the knowledge and the technologies for themselves and created secret space programs that are having bases on Mars and asteroids and all that stuff. But let's go to the good guys. Dr. Keller, would you like, if no one has any questions?
Sure. Well, I just wanted to say in answer to that question that the Venusians have been operating behind the scenes in promoting peace and understanding between nations. That was the mission of Valiant Thor that I write about in the Venus Rising, a concise history of the second planet. And the result of his meetings with President Eisenhower later resulted in a lot of technology for the peaceful exploration and the demilitarization of outer space, the Non-Proliferation Nuclear Treaty of 1966, and also the protocols established by International Astronomical Union for contact with extraterrestrials when it does take place, that it'll first occur in the scientific community, and to prepare the Earth for the news that we're not alone in the universe. So yeah, this thing has been happening, and probably happening in other countries as well, in China and in Russia, the former Soviet Union, and so forth. That extraterrestrials are working, living and working among us, and when the time is right, they'll make their presence known. But the one thing that they really respect about life here on Earth and the human beings is our autonomy. They respect our autonomy. And the reason that they don't come down is because right now is we still have a long way to go to develop as a planet before we would be worthy to enter into a galactic confederation. We don't share energy. We don't have a planetary energy grid. We're divided into 214 separate nations, and the United Nations is weak and ineffective. And we can't even get along with the neighbor across our yard on the other side of the fence, let alone other countries. So how are we going to be a cooperative and friendly, progressive member of an intergalactic confederation? And they talk about ascension and all this. It's not going to happen the way things are going right now. So we still have a long ways to go. I'm sorry to say there's a Kardashev level of civilizations that goes up to level 4, which is not only intergalactic but universal. But we haven't even gotten out of the basement yet. We're not really a spacefaring civilization. We landed on the moon and stayed there for a couple of days, but back in the 60s, the Soviets had the project E9, and then we had the project A119 to actually detonate nuclear weapons on the moon in the part of the Cold War. So don't expect our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters to be so excited about hurrying our membership in a galactic confederation.
I can, Raymond, I can see the ETs turning around, looking at us, and saying, "Wait a minute, they ain't ready."
It's like, and when we do go up there, it's like they're saying, "There goes the neighborhood."
That's right. Exactly. The funny thing about the whole thing is we as a civilization, world civilization, we are to a degree getting a little more logical. Like, if it wasn't for this, it was for this. For every action, there's an equal reaction. One of those kind of things. When we do that, people are running around yelling, "One world order." Now, we talked about universally taking care of each other. That's one world order. I don't care what anybody says.
Oh, yes. You see, though, Bob, that the difference is they won't recognize a one world order if it's imposed by force and subjugation of minorities, right. and imperialism and domination like that. But if it comes about by kindness and free association, like in the Bible, for example, in the book of Acts, in the 2nd chapter, the apostles were taught by Jesus to live a system of sharing that might be described by some as socialistic or that, but it was all by free association, as Dr. Frank Stranges expressed it. You wouldn't have to be a part of it if you didn't want to, and nobody was forcing anybody to be a Christian and to live at that high of a spiritual level. So this is a spiritual thing, and right now our spiritual understanding nowhere matches our technology, and until it does and surpasses it, I don't think that we can really expect too much in the short run.
I'd like to make a couple comments here. The Venusian Valiant Thor also gave healing technology, but we do have a secret space program that they have utilized against us and for their benefit. And the other reason they don't take over, Raymond made it clear, is that if they were to land at this point of humans' understanding, we have people that would welcome them, worship them as gods. People would become envious of their technology, and it would be like it would circumvent our free will in creating our own Earth. So we have to go through this challenging time or cleansing of the Earth, which is a natural cycle of Earth changes. And the Venusians have prevented nuclear war many times, but they do not want to see as a dictatorship. So the plan is they're appearing more and more and more and more and more every day all over the world. And we have these various people waking up, and pretty soon the government and the controlled mainstream media, which is all run by these BlackRock and Blackstone and Umbrella Military and all of these cutout agencies, which have creating wars and destruction on the planet for their fallen demons that used to run the world. They're gone now, but they're still going forward with the plan. It's not going to.
At the beginning of the Cold War, you see the appearance of flying saucers over these military bases all around the world, and they emitted these green fireballs, which were radiation neutralizers. They were disabling nuclear weapons at Vandenberg up in Montana,
right?
In the then Soviet Union, and appearing everywhere. And the radiation from the above ground tests that were taking place in Nevada and so forth were neutralized by the green fireballs from the flying saucers. And if they didn't do that, that radiation would have still been here today, and we'd be a much mutated species. So they have been working behind the scenes to help us, as Rob has said there.
The other thing I want to mention.
I was going to say, hold on a minute, Rob. I have a friend in New York who, his name is Mark Brinkerhoff, who also works with the Space Command, and he knows the commanders of that command. And it's really, really funny because, I mean, what he tells me, you're telling me now too. I mean, they can step in and they can stop something, but only if it was going to and or could be the end of humanity. And they didn't put us here and help us here to see us destroy ourselves. So therefore, since their history is killing and maiming, and they went through the same thing we did. The only thing is they're older and they're smarter. So therefore, to teach us, the only thing they can possibly do is lead us around by the nose a little bit and say, hey, look, wake up.
You're right, Bob, and they've been there and done that. And the thing about it is that sure, they could come down and make a paradise here on this earth, but we would rebel against that because it's not a system that we created. It would be imposed on us, and even somewhat beneficent dictatorship is still a dictatorship, and they want us in our own autonomy to develop our own systems of command and control and free political association, and not be dictated. They don't need to be glorified babysitters and come down here.
So I wanted to mention one last thing, and then I'm just going to give it to Raymond and you for the rest of the show. What happened in Miami was they had been, underneath that mall was a very advanced government base with very high technology that they used to manipulate mankind and to suppress spiritual consciousness. They had planted a false flag of a shooting. That's why so many police cars were there, because they were preparing to go there after the machine gun fire like they did in Las Vegas. You know, the police chief in Las Vegas was the same police chief in Maui when they directed the energy weapons. And there is definitely a depopulation program going on with various technologies that they use and they spray in the air. So one of the things I want to say is what happened was the enforcement unit of a coalition of extraterrestrial races, which are helping to clear the Earth, knew that was taking place. They had fired up this machine, and it was going to gather all the fear and all the depression and everything from that event. And these extraterrestrials, eighth, ninth dimensional beings, came in and they showed themselves so that the secret space program that's in charge of this technology would know that it's them. They destroyed that technology. The ships were seen, those were real. It was a false flag that was stopped. There's no more mass murdering. They cannot make war. They're running out of money. They're doing a lot in Israel, and it's horrible. But mankind has to use this as a wake-up call to the understanding that all wars have been manipulated to create blood sacrifices and to keep mankind in destroying himself. We have to rise above that. So that's what's going on. Raymond has a wonderful story. It may not be, it's a little segued off this, but I'll let you decide what you guys want to do on that cause.
You're taking off, ladies and gentlemen. That was Robert Potter. not up to himself, but you know he did come in here, so he's definitely a veteran.
Well, thanks to Raymond, I'm an acknowledged face-to-face. I had met many of the Venusians, but I didn't meet them before Raymond. Raymond, I mean, if you have the Venus rising, if you want to share or what Bob feels where he'd like the conversation to go.
Okay, I got 2 emails, and one was to discuss the Venus rising, and the other was to discuss the contactee from Howe, Idaho, Paul Solom, and his connection with the Indian prophecies, Hopi Indians.
Which would
so
like
I'm prepared to go either way here.
We got a little bit of time left.
Okay, we could start with the Venus rising.
I was going to one with the Hopis, and that now we've had that discussion on this show before, and that, as a matter of fact, I even had one of the chiefs from out there that was on one of these shows.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I mean, we've really delved into their background, where they came from, all the different things that the chiefs pass up, past stories about time and all kinds of things. So we actually had a really good time doing it.
All right. Well, let me go ahead then and share some of that information. It won't let me put it up on the screen, but I can talk
now, Cause it is sharing.
I see it here.
Oh,
you're sharing it.
It's sharing right now?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, this is entitled Inhabitants of North America Put on Alert, Latter-day Prophecies of UFO Contactee Paul Solom and Native American Chiefs Now Coming True, Part 1. So this is going to be a 6-part series, and so far I have 5.5 parts written, but this gentleman was not really well known among the contactees, and but I managed to save a lot of information about him over the years because he shares a background of being a Latter-day Saint, and a lot of his prophecies and worked with the Native Americans overlapped with his membership in the Mormon Church. So he's from Howe in Bingham County, Idaho, and at the height of his ministry in 1969 and 1970, together with a contingent of North American elders and chiefs, He consistently called down flying saucers in the presence of massive crowds and issued prophetic proclamations of startling events that would come to pass on the earth, especially the United States, well into the middle of the 21st century. He was a rancher by trade and a Scandinavian by ancestry, and was born at West Springs, Cook County, Illinois, on the 28th of January 1921, and lived for 91 years, passing away on 11 February 2012. His spouse, Ada, was 7 years his senior, and they were both members of the LDS Church. They were married in 1943 and had one child, a daughter, Sylvia, who was born in 1944 and lived through 1975. So in this program, I can discuss his first encounter with extraterrestrials. It took place back in June of 1948. He and Ada invited his brother-in-law, who lived in nearby Howe, for dinner. After finishing their meal, the three went out onto the front porch of the ranch house. That's when Paul took note of three round glowing objects speeding toward them over the field where he grazed his cattle. When the UFOs were 500 feet from his home, two of them veered away, passing over Saddle Mountain to the north. The object was left to hover directly in front of the witnesses. All three being Mormons, they could not help but attach spiritual significance to the appearance of these mysterious objects. Paul remembered from a priesthood quorum the lesson that the prophet Brigham Young once taught, that Adam was the person who brought the animals and seeds from another planet to this world. He brought a wife with him and stayed here. When Young made this statement, he was providing his interpretation to one of the LDS scriptures, chapter 5 of the book of Abraham, which describes conditions existing on other inhabited worlds more advanced than our own. For Paul Solom, he held no qualms about the existence of intelligent beings existing beyond the earth, nor having developed advanced vehicles that could transport them from their planet to ours. He believed that there were probably beings inside those objects piloting them, and that perhaps they were angelic. And that's very interesting, because even Billy Graham said in his book, Angels, God's Secret Agents, that on page 21, he said that don't be surprised to learn that angels are aliens and coming to Earth in flying saucers.
You know, it's funny that you should say that, because the Indians were the ones that actually turned around and said that the angels had come down from heaven. You know, it was,
yes,
I think they were the ones that actually coined, you know, the whole thing. And then when they did, those people that came down were people who came down, period. But whether they were angels, whether they were agents, whether they were spies, who knows? But they came down. They said they came down. So therefore, they did, and they're here.
yes.
I mean, let's face it. You don't turn around and go, like, you know, when you're here and you're working and you're working with people and you're working with. They built civilizations all over the world.
Oh, yes, and angels have frequently appeared, and many humans didn't even know it. In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2, it says, always be kind to one another, for know ye not that ye entertain angels unawares.
There you go. There you go.
So before we called them aliens, people would say, yeah, angels live and work among us.
Right.
So now we just call them aliens, but they're really one and the same thing.
And you know, there's things in front of people's face every single day. I mean, I happen to be a buff when it comes to like ancient history and things, and you see some of these civilizations that are put together. And there was I was watching a history show the other day on the History Channel, and they were showing how this actually fort. I mean, it was huge, you know, place in that where they were supposed to worship and everything. And they put together these buildings in this wall with all these rocks that you and I would pick up off the ground and say, "Oh, look, a rock." And then you would try to put it together with another rock and put it together with another rock, and eventually you build a building or you know, a thing. Mine personally, mine would be on the ground in a week, you know. And I don't know how you are with the things, but it's like, hey. But they were actually showing you close-ups of the rocks themselves that they put together. They were put together just like they were made to be together.
Oh, yeah.
But like you could not stick a dollar bill in the crack between the rocks. And what they had said was that to this day, the measurements that they used, and including, well, that's where we're Pyramid One Radio, the pyramids themselves, they cannot duplicate the measurements in the amount of size of these things today. They can't. They even tried it with a satellite.
Wow.
They still can't, because it's one thing from the satellite can measure it out. They can say, okay, well, this is the way it goes. But when you get to the ground, it's a different story. Because the ground, now you're putting together something on the ground. You're not, looking down on something. So every single one of these buildings and every single one of these pyramids have completely 100% right angles to what they did when they put them together. Every single one of them are perfectly square. Perfectly. How'd they do that from the ground?
Oh, yes. They've been here before, and
Exactly.
that's for sure. And I believe that the extraterrestrials want to help us develop the powers that are latent within us. We talk about psychometry, mental telepathy, bilocation, all these amazing things, clairvoyance, clairaudience. The extraterrestrials, being more cosmically evolved than we are, have these things. But as we slowly develop these, then we'll be, coming into our own, and we'll be more of a welcome entry into the Galactic Confederation. And this goes on to what Paul Solom had to say, because he reasoned that if there were angels on board these flying saucers, that they could probably read the intentions of his heart, a psychic ability that we now refer to as mental telepathy.
Right.
So he said, maybe I can communicate with the pilot or some of the crew of that spaceship if I can frame a question in my mind for someone on board to answer. Concentrating, Paul Solom thought hard, formulating pertinent questions for any beings that might be tuning into his thought process. He could only come up with two: who are you, and where are you from? No sooner did he come up with these questions than he heard a voice inside his head replying, we are from another planet. You can be sure that you will hear from us later. Then the second encounter took place in the fall of 1952. And then he got to see another UFO. This time there was this multicolored light hovering in the sky directly over his ranch. As it started to move, Paul got in his car, turned the ignition, and revved up the motor. He was bound and determined to follow the object in his car for as long as he possibly could. He kept the UFO in sight, following it in his car for 3 miles until it landed in the Lost River Sinks. Once it came to a full rest on the ground, the lights on the object dimmed and went out. In the full light of the moon, Paul observed a metallic disc, like one of those flying saucers that fellow Idahoan and civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold had seen speeding over the top of Mount Rainier in neighboring Washington state, the ones he described to the news reporters in the summer of 1947. So now he meets an alien being. In the encounter with the unknown, there was a tremendous difference. Instead of a disembodied voice speaking in his head, there was a splendid being standing next to the flying saucer. At first glance, Paul took this entity to be a slender woman of above average height, about 6 feet in stature, with long blonde hair and clothed in a white uniform, something akin to a jumpsuit with the gold trim. Upon closer examination, however, Paul determined that the rather tapered individual is not a woman but a man, quite androgynous in his overall appearance. So this is what an angel looks like, the contactee mused to himself. The alien being was the first to broach the silence, speaking orally instead of telepathically. Greetings, Paul. As you surmised, I am indeed the one you communicated with back in 1948. The planet I come from is Venus, the second one out from the sun in its orbit. In a sense, our souls have been linked throughout the eternities. You are a physical aspect of myself, while I am a sort of guardian angel watching over you. I am simultaneously keeping my eye on many other aspects, incarnations in other timelines and physical dimensions. You might say that I understand you better than you can understand yourself.
Yeah.
I'm stunned, replied Paul, but tell me, please, what is your name? How should I call you? For the time being, since we have so much in common, let's just say that I am Paul too. Before you arrived on Earth, we lived on Venus and served the collective there as a spiritual teacher. I want you to know that I was ever at your side in the past 4 years. I know that you were discouraged when your bishop and priesthood authorities in your ward failed to take your report of the flying saucer seriously. Even your community at large failed to grasp the gravity of you and your kin's experience with us. But I and others within the collective value your insight and believe that you can still help us with our informative mission here on Earth. So what do you want me to do? Paul inquired. In your current incarnation, you are to direct your attention and work toward the Indians of North, Central, and South America. You will strive mightily with them in the coming gathering, preparing them for the building of the city of Zion, a post-apocalyptic utopian social order in which money will be outlawed and all people will live communally and in harmony with one another. So that's the end of part 1. And in part 2, I returned to Paul Solem's mission as a Venusian light worker sent among the Indians of the Western Hemisphere, preparing them for the tribulations to come and the ultimate establishment of a paradisical world on Earth in the times to come later on. And so that's the story of initial story of Paul Solem. So then he goes and he meets Chief Inghop, a Shoshone, and the Black in the Fort Hall Reservation in Idaho, around the Pocatello area, and then the chief and Paul go down to. They're directed by the Venusians to go meet Chief Dan Kachonga in 1970. They go down there, and he was 108 years old. And interestingly, he never really died, because in part 6, I reveal how he became a translated being and was taken up alive in a flying saucer at 140 years of age. So this is really a super amazing story and everybody can follow it either on Rob's site or on Lon Strickler's phantomsandmonsters.com. I write a weekly column there.
Well, there you go. What you got to do is you got to send me that information for that column so I can put it on the promo.
Oh yeah, I will be very happy to do that.
No, seriously. I mean, we go out. I mean, all the things that we do that the station does, and it's on all over Twitter and you name it, it's there. It's like all over the place.
So I'm going to say it's going to be on my website, and I actually sent you that article that Raymond sent me. You have that article in your email. I sent it to you right before the show. Also, Raymond, can I share screen now? I want to share my website real quick because I can show you where it's at. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'm gonna share screen now. So I'm going to share here. So this is my website, thepromiserevealed.net. Let me know when is it being shared? Can you see it?
Nope.
Okay, it took a while for Raymond's. Let's see.
It looks like it's in a mode, but there's nothing there.
Yeah. Let me click again. Confirm. no, switch screen or window, I guess. Let me see here. So I'm gonna switch window. There you go. Is that working now?
No.
Okay. I don't know. His took a while to switch to. Let me go in here, and I'm gonna push that.
I don't know, Robert. There's something up there.
Yeah, Skype is not my favorite format, but anyway, so my website is called
click it off so we go back to normal.
Oh, I thought I did. Okay. Confirm stop sharing. Okay. All right, so my website is called thepromiserevealed.net.
There you go.
And I have a banner up there. I have for 10 years I've had a summer conference. I usually get from I think we started at 50 people, and we generally now for the last some years I get anywhere from 300 to 400 people throughout the whole weekend. And I've invited you, Bob, to come this July 18th to the 21st. And we have some speakers coming, Laura Eisenhower, Raymond Keller, Louis Martens, the famous contactee from South America, who was leading UFO groups at 13 after a spaceship hovered over him and his mother.
So where is that now?
It's in Mount Shasta, California.
Oh yeah. So you didn't say where it was that for people to get excited. I mean, let's face it. This is Shasta is like it's the place to go. If you want to go see UFOs, man, go there.
We have we're off the grid. We're going to have a Skywatch, and if you don't see UFOs, you'll get a refund, because Louis, Raymond, a guy named Kiva, who's connected to Sirius system, myself, and other. I'm trying to think the other contactees, but there's going to be a lot of people there, and they're going to do a display for us. And Louis will kind of lead that conference, that little display one evening. It's off grid. We have, I just got a menu that we're going to be offering lunch and dinner. We are 7 miles from any building, and probably like 7.5 from houses. We're up on a beautiful lake, and you can see this on the website, the first banner, thepromiserevealed.net. Is anyone in the chat? Has anyone had any questions for Raymond?
Nope.
Okay.
I would figure, you got to remember though too, Annette, this is a very, very important day on the TV, because everybody's up in New Hampshire.
Oh,
They have all the Trump talking things going on.
Pony show. It's a dog and pony show.
I mean, you know what's actually there was a guy, because I have a real, antenna radio station. I could throw a baseball and hit the antenna. That's how close it is to me. Those guys, now they usually have anywhere between, say, 500,000 and 1 million people right here locally that can pick up the signal listening to their radio. Well, yesterday they had, according to their graph, a little over 50,000, which is a lot down.
Can I ask you what the wattage is?
On theirs? Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I don't know exactly what it is now, but you can feel it when you get close enough.
You're getting some EMF there, FYI. They did have the Crosley Corporation go on in 1940 with 500,000 watts, and people were getting sick. Now they've lowered the FCC has lowered it to 50,000, but in Los Angeles there's a place called Signal Hill, and there's no vegetation on that mountain because of the radio frequencies. If I were you, I would probably work on some EMF protection stuff. But I want to thank you for having.
You're talking about aluminum hats over here. What's going on? You see, Raymond? See, he's talking about aluminum hats.
Oh yeah. Well, Art Bell used to say that if you're not paranoid by now, you're not paying attention to the news.
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the megawatt radio station, because my very favorite episode of The Outer Limits was the very first one, called The Galaxy Being, where this ultra-dimensional being from the edge of the universe comes down a radio signal and comes to this small California town, and walks around and wreaks havoc, being composed only of electromagnetic energy. Everybody doesn't know how to deal with it. That was really advanced. That was a real advanced science fiction story, and for the early 1960s when it came out. But I remember that very clearly. I was so excited to see that show and all the other programs that came on the Outer Limits. I was a big fan of the original one.
It was probably today they call it 5G.
Oh yeah, but who knows? Who knows? What kind of rift all this electromagnetic disturbances are causing in the space-time continuum, and just who's coming down right now. It may be that program was more prophetic than science fiction.
Rob, I mean, I love having Raymond on because I mean,
I want to reach out to him now, and you can do show after show. This man is ask about rockets to Venus, and he will go through all of the lies and all the discovery. It's as thick as Venus rising. He lists the probes, he lists the technology, he lists what was originally found, and then he talks about the cover-up by NASA, Russia, all the other space agencies. Listen, light is knowledge, knowledge is power. And that's why they're keeping the knowledge, which is the light, from humans by controlling the narrative and making everyone ignorant of the truth. And we have to take responsibility and make our own decisions. And as soon as we stop listening to them and following their maniacal laws and ordinances and stand up and separate themselves, they have no power anymore. They also have no money. So I don't think things are going to move forward as everyone thinks they are.
Robert, I think you might have seen it though, but I have a banner around. It's got a dolphin on it, and it says, "It is time." And that was one of my original banners 14 years ago. The idea of putting together what we put together with Pyramid One was let people know. There's too much. I won't even break it down to lies or truth, but there is information that people should have. Instead of that, you're listening to the radio or the TV or something like that. It's like Heinz 57. I mean, you're getting the junk at the bottom of the pail in that someplace, Ned, and the stuff that rose to the top you're never going to hear about.
Bob, they call it I'm a veteran and served in the Navy and the Army, and they had a saying there. It's about propaganda. It's called feeding the. It's like the mushroom principle. People are like mushrooms. You keep them in the dark and feed them manure.
Well, yeah, I know.
That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing now.
One of the great things about the internet and the social media is there's a lot of information. You really have to use discernment. There are a lot of people who are figuring out some things and giving really half-truths and some things like that. And but I'm seeing on Instagram now, they're revealing, they have images of the robot that's Trump, the robot that's Elon Musk, the robot of Katy Perry. Many of the Hollywood elite are very much involved in the cover-up and the lies. They're actually showing their eyes glitching. And this is part of the negative agenda. We like to stay on the positive, but if people can educate themselves and use discernment, I think Raymond Keller, everything about Raymond Keller is absolutely legitimate and honest. He's very humble, he's very pure, and he does not offer salacious information. He is talking about love, hope, and peace, and the man lived on Venus and he walked and talked amongst them. I think you have a lot of shows with him in the future as his schedule allows, but it's amazing what he can bring to the knowledge of the people. So I'm very happy to have introduced him to you. So thank you for having.
I also have someone that I like to pair up with him, and that the person I was talking about that actually speaks to the command and things. I mean, it's like it's very, very interesting. I mean, there's so many things going on, and it's gonna. We don't get it through our thick heads. In 2 years, and I said this years ago. I was saying like 25, 26. We're actually going to have somebody that, or not somebody, but somebody's, a whole bunch of people that are actually going to identify themselves as being not from this place. It's gonna come. It's right around the corner. I mean, it's been coming for years and years and years and years. But hey, and when you talked about Lemuria,
Yeah.
and things like that, there are still people around that are relatives of those times, and they are going to start coming around.
Well, the Tibetans are from Lemuria, as well as the people in Bolivia and Peru. They, after the sinking, they had colonies there. In fact, behind me here on the mountain is Mount Shasta, and there's a city there called Telos, and that was from Lemuria, but originally it was a Venusian colony that lived on Lemuria, but they knew what was happening. They were a little more advanced than the average Lemurian because they were from outer space. So they maintained their contacts and spirituality, although some of the Venusians, according to Raymond, had sided with the people's request to have the technology from the Venusians. So the Venusians evacuated many of them before because they were becoming involved in some of the polarization that was taking place that caused the destruction of Lemuria. And at the end, there was a being named Amaru. And he bought something called the gold.
I'll call you back. I'm on a Zoom.
He called the
Okay. Thank you.
He did a I'm sorry, Raymond, you should mute yourself when you do that, but it's okay.
He lost his thought.
So he bought the golden disc of the sun. He bought it to Cusco, then it went to Tiwanaku, another one of their colonies on the South American continent, and then it was taken to Egypt, and it's typified as by the Sufis as the heart with wings, or on the Temple of Dendara, it's considered the sun with wings, and then in other aspects of Egyptian, it's considered as the sun, like between the two horns. And this technology allows the higher dimensionals to monitor the life streams on Earth. It was controlled by the interdimensional higher aspect of the beings inside the Earth and the higher dimensionals. And because they fell, they bought an asteroid in, and it actually landed on their own planet. And as I said, 64 million souls. When you look out on Easter Island, all those statues with the hats, they're always looking towards Lemuria, even in Peru. And they have a tear in their eye for the great loss. But it precipitated a tremendous destruction. And Cusco was a seaport, and it's now at 12,000 feet. So that was a pretty severe earth change, a cataclysm that took place. I think that was about 30,000 years ago.
Hey, Raymond, you got a last word?
Oh yeah. Well, I believe that many of the survivors of Atlantis and Lemuria did escape to other parts of the world following these great cataclysms 12,500 years 500 years ago, and there's traces of their presence in the DNA of certain people, like with the Rh negative blood factor and some other factors. So and then there's always souls that have reincarnated from these ancient civilizations, and also from other planets that are here. There was a great civilizations that had wars on a planet that existed between Mars and Jupiter, that now forms the the asteroid belt, and they blew themselves up. So maybe those souls are coming back here, and they're getting a second chance.
Well, they can
So
fix
that just goes to show you this one important principle that we learned from here: past lives matter.
There you go. There you go. The new T-shirt. Yeah. Guys, Robert Potter, and Raymond Keller, thank you very, very much for being here. We have to do this again because we're leading in a direction that's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest you do a couple shows with Raymond and then bring Mark in, because Raymond's can just.
Oh yeah,
and as more people will call in, he can answer so many questions on so many levels. He time traveled. That's his third book.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you got to get this book. It's Venus Rising: A Concise History of the Second Planet. I have, what I do usually in that is I go through it and I breeze through it. I read a page here, and a page there, and a page over here. I mean, I am going to be sitting down with this for a month. And I mean, it's like I'm always busy, so I'm always doing things, but I always have a half an hour here and a half an hour there and an hour here. So I'm gonna keep on going. I mean, this is so far what I'm reading is great.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the recommendation. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, anybody who wants a book, go to Amazon and just put the word in there, and you got it.
And Rob and I started this cosmic mailbag, and so I have sets of questions that I've answered from them. So even if we don't have sufficient questions,
people
we
can
could certainly fill out time, and I could answer some questions out of the mailbag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can email me. His books are also on my site. Raymond gets a higher percentage than he does on Amazon. So if possible, you can buy his books on my website. So
go ahead, tell the website.
thepromiserevealed.net.
Everybody, don't be confused now when you put the thing in. Put it in one word, because I've seen people separate the words. I was like, no, you can't do that.
.net. Thank you. God bless you both. Cause, I'll call you in a minute. Bob, you're a hero and a champ. Reach out to Raymond anytime. If you really want me on, I'll come in. I'm going through I mentioned I have some personal things going on from a car accident that I'm dealing with right now. So I want to thank you all for having me on. God bless you.
All right, guys, you'll have a copy of this. It'll be in a Skype-net in about 15 minutes. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, these guys are great. And you got to get that book. I'm serious. I mean, I was looking through the book myself like, hey, look, after 14 years of listening to my voice on this radio thing, you know that I'm not going to give you no baloney. Venus Rising: A Concise History of the Second Planet. I'm telling you, the book, I mean, I can't wait to go through the whole thing page for page. I only breezed through it a little bit, and already I'm excited to read the rest. So get it. Go to Amazon or go to
RobertPotter.net.
There you go. Go there, and you will definitely get a copy of that book. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, God bless y'all. Bob Charles.
God bless.
Out.
Thank you so much.